Right. Hi, my name's Deane. I'm a facilitator from Melbourne with Be The Change, and I've just come back from an amazing couple of weeks in the Ecuadorian Amazon rainforest, and there I spent most of the time with the Achuar, which are the indigenous culture that live in 2 million hectares of that rainforest. It's located in the headwaters of the Amazon, which is only a number of 100 feet above sea level, and there we descended from Quito, the central plateau of Ecuador, which is approximately 9,000 feet, right down to the Amazon area. And as we flew in, it was quite extraordinary because, essentially we're leaving the Western world, or civilization as we knew it, or as we know it, behind. And we skimmed over the canopy of the rainforest for about an hour, and very soon after we actually flew out of the nearest point from the Achuar territory in the rainforest. We started to leave the buildings behind, and eventually we left the roads behind, and it's just pristine rainforest the whole way. And we followed the rivers, and after a while we could see some village huts and so on, and some clearings, albeit hard to spot because they're well camouflaged. And then we'd see these magnificent flame trees, red flame trees and yellow trees with flowers on them, exquisite colours. And already we sensed that we were flying into something pretty special. Why did I go to visit the Achuar? Well, it was actually part of an organised Pachamama Alliance trip with facilitators to the rainforest, and I actually wanted to go there to understand a little bit more about the origins of the Awakening the Dream and Change the Dream symposium, because as we know, those of us who are familiar with the symposium, it has its origins in that place. And by actually visiting the Achuar and spending time with them, I felt I could actually deepen that relationship and understand where the Achuar were coming from, and hence be able to more effectively interpret that through the symposium when I present it. That was the first reason. The second reason was actually to get a sense of how this indigenous culture, the Achuar, which is a dreaming culture, what similarities might exist between them and our own indigenous Aborigines in Australia. And the third reason was to essentially just relax and have fun with a group of extraordinary people. So we arrived into a town called Sharamansa, which is defined essentially by a runway, landing strip, which just appears very quickly out of nowhere, out of the jungle, and it's on the edge of the river. And the plane actually, because it had just been raining, made a pretty hairy landing and started to slip and slide along the runway, but I'm sure the pilot was in complete control, and we pulled up to a stop. And as it came to a stop, we were met by these villagers in their traditional coloured clothing, which for the men is like shawls or long dresses, skirts around the waist, and with their headgear. And that was pretty awesome. And lots of little children who all wanted to carry our bags back to the gathering house. So there were a lot of highlights on this trip, but already once we'd landed we realised that we were in a very different part of the world, and we were in their territory, no longer in ours. Some of the things we experienced on the trip, which is really what I wanted to share with you, because if you have a chance to visit Ecuador, and particularly if you have a chance to go on these types of trips, I highly recommend it. It's one of the most amazing, life-changing experiences that anyone could wish to have. And just to give you a couple of glimpses of some of the things we did, we had cultural exchange ceremonies with these people, realising that some of them speak Spanish, but actually none of them speak English, and they have their own language. We spent 6 hours walking through the rainforest with guides to another neighbouring town, and that itself was pretty amazing, because you take one step off the track in the jungle through the rainforest and you have actually no idea where you are. In fact, if we didn't have the guides, we had no idea where we were, and even with the guides we had no idea where we were. We just simply had to follow the guides. And 6 hours walking through, and it wasn't a terribly easy walk, very muddy, but remarkable nonetheless, past rivers, waterfalls, plants that, of course, which you've never heard of or seen before, and similarly birds and other animals. And we then arrived at the other village and we thought it was time to go and have a swim, so we had a swim in the river, realising very quickly also that if we didn't hug the banks, the current was so strong we'd probably end up in the Atlantic Ocean about 4,000 kilometres away. So just be warned. And then we had a couple of experiences, amazing experiences with the local shamans, which is in Australian equivalent, it's like our Aboriginal witch doctors. These are their spiritual, religious medicine people, and they're quite extraordinary. One of the things that became apparent in our time with the Achuar was that they have a totally different worldview. They don't distinguish, as I understand it anyway, between past, present and future. It's like living in parallel universes at the same time. And we saw evidence of that because in their dreaming culture they get information about what happens during the day in our what we call our awakened state. And that information is often very accurate, and so they think it's just one continuum essentially. One of the other exquisite experiences we had was to do a guided walk through the rainforest for several hours with one of their people who showed us all the amazing plants and some of the animals, and just what a treasure trove of resources, if you like, that the rainforest is, but resources in a very respectful sense. They see themselves not separate from the rainforest, they are part of it, it is part of them, in the same way that they see the rivers and the soil and the stars as part of them. And with spending a bit of time with them, actually observing that and having some experiences, it's extraordinarily powerful, and we felt that even after a short period of time we could get a sense of how they might relate to it, and because we actually started to feel that ourselves. We did a river run or current run on the river where we jumped out of these rafts and boats and the dugout boats, and we just drifted for a couple of hours in this incredibly strong current, and that was amazing because we actually had the freshwater dolphins, the pink dolphins, accompany us all the way along, just like guiding us down the river. And they're a sacred animal. They don't hunt them, they don't touch them, they just revere them. And for these dolphins to appear and essentially guide us, that was, so we're told, quite an extraordinary occasion. So, and then we stayed at Kapawi Lodge, which is on my t-shirt here. This is now fully owned and managed by the Achuar, and they're doing a successful job. I think they're doing a very good job of that. Still learning how to do it, but that's a beautiful place to spend a few days just to chill out and immerse oneself in the rainforest. What were some of the other experiences? Well, as we flew out of the rainforest, it became quite apparent that the Achuar were essentially providing a metaphor for us in the West, and that is that they realised this is one of the last bastions of pristine natural environment in the world, and that as soon as they allow roads and other intrusions or incursions from the West in pursuit of resources into their territory, then it's gone. They've actually watched neighbouring tribes being wiped out completely, and they see that that's the future for them unless they change the dream of the West, and which is one of the reasons they open their doors and open their hearts to invite the West to come and experience the world as they see it. And it is a very profound experience, and when you leave, when you go away, it's very hard to even entertain some of the views that we have about how we treat the planet. So, in short, it's a beautiful experience, it's an amazing experience, and it can be a very deep experience too. I've got a lot of time for these people. They are very sophisticated, they're very complex thinkers, and they have a relationship with the planet, with Earth, and everything around themselves, and with themselves as a community that we can learn so much from. So I commend you to it. Go find out. Thank you.